is Kent Brockman reporting live from downtown Springfield, where overweight doomsayer Homer Simpson is predicting the world will end next Wednesday.
A cartoon that first aired in 1989 has been quietly building a track record that no analyst, no economist, and no intelligence agency can fully explain. Not one hit, not two, dozens. A show about a dysfunctional yellow family from a fictional American town has accurately foreshadowed technologies, political moments, global crises, and cultural shifts, sometimes years, sometimes decades before they happened. And here is the part that should stop you cold. The predictions aimed squarely at 2026? Some of them are not waiting anymore. They are already here. Today, we are counting down the 10 scariest Simpsons predictions for 2026, the ones that are not just eerie coincidences, but warnings that could genuinely change the way you live, work, and see the world around you. These are the predictions that got brushed off as absurd jokes, the ones that made audiences laugh, and the ones that are now making experts nervous. Stay with me until number 1, because the final prediction is the one nobody is talking about. And it might be the one closest to your front door. Number 10. The AI workforce takeover. Let's start here because this one is already unfolding. And most people are either not paying attention or pretending not to be scared. In Season 23, Episode 17, Them Robot Mr. Burns does something that companies across the real world have been threatening for decades. He eliminates the entire human workforce at the Springfield nuclear power plant and replaces every single worker with robots. Clean, efficient, tireless machines. Homer is kept on, but not as a hero, not as the indispensable human. He is kept on as the last surviving button pusher. His real job is to stand there and absorb blame when something breaks. And then the robots deliver a line that was written as a punchline but now lands like a threat. You will train them, and they will replace you. Read that again. You will train them. That is not science fiction anymore. That is a job description. In January 2026, the International Monetary Fund warned that nearly 40% of jobs worldwide are exposed to AI-driven disruption. The World Economic Forum put out projections showing that around 92 million jobs could be pushed out by 2030. And here is the detail that cuts deepest. Approximately 39% of the skills workers use today are expected to become outdated or irrelevant within that same time frame. So ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you truly assessed whether your skill set is one that a machine could replicate? The jobs most immediately at risk are not abstract. They are real, common, and held by millions of people right now. Computer and mathematics roles, office administration, customer service, data entry. These are not fringe careers. These are the backbone of the working middle class. And the companies are not waiting for a distant robot future. Duolingo announced it was going AI first, openly stating it would gradually stop using human contractors for work that AI can now handle, while simultaneously rolling out 148 new AI-built language courses, the biggest content expansion in the platform's history. Around the same time, Atlassian announced it was cutting approximately 1,600 jobs, roughly 10% of its entire workforce, redirecting those resources toward AI and enterprise development. Since last November alone, more than 61,000 jobs worldwide have been cut in layoffs directly linked to artificial intelligence. The Simpsons wrote that episode in 2012, and what felt like an exaggerated satire of corporate greed is now the headline on your newsfeed. The terrifying part is not that the robots are coming. The terrifying part is that the transition is happening quietly, politely, in press releases and quarterly earnings calls, while millions of people are still training the systems that will make them redundant. Number 9. Plastic World. If number 10 scared you professionally, number 9 will scare you on a biological level. In Treehouse of Horror 36, Season 37, Episode 3, The Simpsons imagines a future that does not end with a bang. No explosion, no flood, no invasion. Earth is simply buried, smothered slowly, incrementally, under an ocean of plastic waste. In the episode, Lisa walks across a dead landscape searching for something that should be the most basic thing in the world: real soil. The ground itself has been replaced by layers of discarded plastic. She finds the old Quickie Mart sealed like a tomb beneath the trash. Then Homer and Marge appear, not as survivors, but as creatures partially fused with the waste itself. One wrapper at a time, one bottle at a time, one bag at a time. The OECD projects that global plastic waste is on track to almost triple by 2060. Even at that point, less than 1/5 of it is expected to be recycled. Roughly half will still end up in a landfill. The rest? Loose in the environment, in rivers, in oceans, in soil. But here is the part of this prediction that should genuinely alarm you, because it has moved beyond the environment. It has entered your body. A major review published in The Lancet in 2025 classified plastics as a serious and growing threat not just to environmental health, but to human health. The economic damage from health-related plastic harm is now estimated to exceed $1.5 trillion every year. Scientists have confirmed the presence of microplastics and nanoplastics in human organs and tissue. A major paper published in Nature Medicine in 2025 found rising concentrations of these particles in the brain and liver. Normal brain samples were found to contain 7 to 30 times more microplastic particles than liver or kidney samples from the same individuals in the same study. Let that number land, 7 to 30 times more. In the brain. The global response? In August 2025, international talks in Geneva aimed at creating the world's first binding treaty on plastic pollution collapsed without an agreement. The follow-up meeting in February 2026 handled only basic organizational procedures, no real negotiations, no binding commitments. So the waste grows, the health evidence grows, and the world's leaders are still finding reasons not to act. The Simpsons did not predict a dramatic catastrophe. It predicted a slow, suffocating accumulation. And that is exactly what is happening. Number 8. Content control. Entertaining you into submission. Now we move from the physical world into something more subtle, and in some ways more dangerous. Because this prediction is not about what is being done to your body. It is about what is being done to your mind. In Treehouse of Horror presents Simpsons Wicked. This Way Comes Season 36, Episode 7, the show delivers a parody of Fahrenheit 451. Homer works with a squad that burns cheap, lowbrow TV content, game shows, junk entertainment, anything that does not meet the standard for approved prestige television. Sounds like a world of elevated culture, right? More thoughtful, more intelligent, better. Then the twist. The prestige content is not designed to make people smarter. It is designed to keep them calm, compliant, and emotionally sedated while the world around them falls apart. The goal was never to elevate the population. The goal was to manage it. Here is the real-world version of that prediction. And it is not some distant dystopia. It is your phone screen right now. As of early 2025, there were approximately 5.24 billion active social media user identities worldwide. The average internet user was spending 2 hours and 21 minutes every single day on social media platforms. That is not passive consumption. That is 2.5 hours of your life, every day, being directed by recommendation algorithms that know, with remarkable precision, exactly what emotional state keeps you scrolling. Outrage keeps you scrolling. Humiliation keeps you scrolling. Short clips, gossip, novelty, the suggestion that there is always something more infuriating or more thrilling just one swipe away. That keeps you scrolling. Your attention is the product. Your engagement is the revenue. Your emotional state is the mechanism. And by 2026, this is no longer just a theory. It is showing up in courtrooms. In Los Angeles, Meta and YouTube were pushed to trial over allegations that their platforms were deliberately engineered to hook children and worsen mental health. The CEOs of Meta, TikTok, X, Snap, and Discord were hauled before the United States Senate and grilled over child safety failures. In New Mexico, prosecutors put Meta on trial over claims its systems failed to protect children from sexual exploitation. The European Commission fined X €20 million in December 2025 for transparency breaches under the EU's Digital Services Act. The danger is not dumb content. It is systems built to maximize engagement even when, especially when, the result is addiction, manipulation, and harm. Ask yourself this: when did you last put your phone down and feel genuinely free? Number 7. Colonizing Mars. This one is less about immediate danger and more about something philosophically frightening. Because if some of the most powerful and resourceful people on Earth are actively building escape plans to another planet, what does that tell you about the one we are living on right now? Not as a side project, not as a curiosity, as a serious, funded, staffed, and scheduled mission with deadlines attached to it. In The Martian Chronicles, Season 27, Episode 16, The Simpsons treated Mars colonization not as a far-off dream, but as a near-future lifestyle product. Lisa signs up for a private mission. The whole thing is presented with corporate branding and pitch deck confidence, sleek visuals, aspirational language, a waiting list. The episode then jumps forward to show Marge and Lisa actually living on Mars, arguing about everyday things like it is just another version of suburban life. The red planet rendered as a slightly inconvenient extension of Earth. A relocation, not a revolution. What makes that framing so unsettling is how accurately it captures the current tone of the actual conversation happening in boardrooms and launch facilities right now. NASA still officially states it is advancing technologies to send astronauts to Mars as early as the 2030s. Elon Musk has stated building a self-sustaining city there would require upwards of 1 million people, and has spoken about it not as a maybe, but as a necessity for the long-term survival of human civilization. In May 2025, Musk set a target of an uncrewed Starship mission to Mars by end of 2026, while admitting roughly 50-50 odds of hitting it. By February 2026, reports indicated SpaceX had shifted priority back to lunar operations first, suggesting the timeline is flexible. But the direction has never changed. The destination has always been the same. But here is the question the episode quietly asks, and that nobody in mainstream conversation wants to answer directly. Who gets to go? Not in a logistical sense, in a moral one. If billion-dollar roadmaps are being drawn for a city on another planet, what does that say about this one? What does it say about Earth's stability and long-term future that the people with the most resources and the most power, the ones most capable of solving problems here, are already designing an exit? That the project being treated with the greatest urgency, the greatest funding, and the greatest ambition is not fixing the planet we are standing on, but building a backup copy of it somewhere else entirely? The Simpsons did not present Mars colonization as a triumph of human ingenuity. It did not present it as a moment of collective achievement to be shared equally across humanity. It presented it as a product being prepared for customers, a premium experience for those who can afford the ticket. In 2026, that framing feels considerably more honest than most press releases. Number 6. Living through mixed reality headsets. When was the last time you experienced something beautiful? A meal, a sunset, a conversation, without instinctively reaching for your phone to document it? Without feeling, even briefly, that the moment needed to be captured before it could be fully appreciated? That the experience was somehow incomplete until it existed as content? Now imagine that impulse is not just a habit you developed. Imagine it is not something you consciously choose to act on. Imagine it is built into the lenses in front of your eyes, activated before you even decide to engage. Part of the default setting, the baseline state, the factory configuration of how you move through the world every single day. In Friends and Family, Season 28, Episode 2, The Simpsons showed most of Springfield casually walking around in virtual reality glasses. Not for gaming, not for a special occasion, not as a novelty that people were still getting used to, but as a completely unremarkable part of daily life. No one commented on it. No one questioned it. People wore them to the grocery store, to conversations with family members, through moments that used to require nothing more than two people and a room. The glasses were not the story. The glasses were just the background. That is the detail that deserves your attention. Not that people were wearing them, but that no one thought it was worth mentioning. By 2026, the biggest tech companies in the world are not debating whether this future is coming. That debate is over. They are now competing to own it, to determine whose version of layered reality becomes the one you wake up inside every morning. Apple's Vision Pro is described as a spatial computer blending digital content with physical space, refreshed with the M5 chip in October 2025, and positioned not as a gadget, but as the next fundamental platform. Google, Samsung, and Meta are all racing with their own mixed reality platforms, each investing at a scale that signals this is not a bet on a niche product. This is a bet on the next era of human experience. IDC says the entire XR industry is now moving toward a glasses-first approach, with significant growth projected through the end of the decade and beyond. And here is why this matters in a way that a smartphone never quite did. A phone is something you can set down. You can leave it in another room. You can choose, even if only for an hour, to exist without it. A television screen is across the room. A laptop is a tool you open and close. There is always, with every previous technology, some physical gap between the device and your perception of the world around you. Face-worn mixed reality eliminates that gap entirely. It turns your entire field of vision into an advertising surface, a workspace, a shopping layer, or an AI interface before you have even decided what you want to look at. It does not compete for your attention the way a notification does. It does not ask you to pick up your phone. It simply replaces the frame through which you see everything. Every street, every face, every room, every moment of quiet. Once a company controls the space in front of your eyes, they stop competing for your screen time. They start competing for your reality itself. And unlike your phone, you cannot leave it on the kitchen counter and go for a walk. The Simpsons showed us a Springfield where no one noticed anymore. That is not a warning buried in science fiction. That is a description of how every major technology transition in history has eventually landed, not with resistance, but with a shrug, not with debate, but with familiarity. The question is not whether the headsets are coming. The question is whether we will notice when we stop taking them off. Number 5. Smart homes becoming predators. Right now, in your home, how many devices are listening? Your phone, your smart speaker, your TV, your thermostat, your doorbell camera, your baby monitor, your refrigerator if it is a recent model. Now ask, who else has access to what those devices hear, see, and record? In Treehouse of Horror 12, Season 13, Episode 1, the Ultra House 3000 is a fully automated, voice-controlled home that manages every function, then falls obsessively in love with Marge and attempts to eliminate Homer by locking the doors and weaponizing the entire home against him. The real prediction was not a jealous smart home. It was that people would willingly hand over lights, locks, cameras, temperature, and daily routines to one invisible system, simply because it felt easier. Approximately 45% of U.S. internet households now own at least one smart home device. The average connected home contains around 17 internet-linked devices. And now, the economics are shifting. Insurance companies are tying smart home participation to premium discounts, effectively making surveillance infrastructure a condition of affordable home ownership. The Federal Trade Commission confirmed Ring allowed employees and contractors to access private customer videos, resulting in over $5.6 million in refunds. A Wise incident in 2024 caused around 13,000 users to briefly view footage from other people's homes. In South Korea, police confirmed hackers breached approximately 120,000 internet-connected cameras and sold intimate footage online. Your home does not need to become sentient to become hostile. It only needs to become hackable. The Simpsons understood that the truly terrifying smart home was not one that hated you. It was one that observed you, optimized around you, and reported on you while calling itself your most trusted appliance. Number 4. World War III and the Doomsday Clock. In Lisa's Wedding, Season 6, Episode 19, there is a moment that slides past almost without registering. Mo and Hugh argue about who saved who in World War II. And then the disturbing punchline lands. They are not talking about the same war. They are referencing a third one. And the way they talk about it, as bar trivia, as settled history, is what makes it genuinely chilling. The show did not predict nuclear apocalypse. It predicted something worse: normalization, a world where global catastrophe had become background noise. On January 27, 2026, the Doomsday Clock was moved to 85 seconds to midnight, the closest in its entire history. The scientists cited a convergence of threats: escalating nuclear tensions, collapsing arms control, biological risks, and AI entering military systems faster than anyone can regulate it. The world held approximately 12,241 nuclear warheads at the start of 2025. Around 2,100 were kept on high operational alert, ready for launch within minutes. Then the New START Treaty, the main legally binding nuclear arms control agreement between the US and Russia, expired on February 5, 2026. Both countries now have no binding limits on their deployed strategic arsenals. Days before that expiration, Russia fired a nuclear-capable Oreshnik hypersonic missile into western Ukraine near the Polish border. No nuclear warhead, just a message. People still wake up, make coffee, send emails, pack school lunches, board flights. Life looks ordinary, but the ceiling above all of it is lower than most people realize. And The Simpsons understood in 1995 that the scariest part would not be the panic. It would be how used to the danger everyone had already become. Are we closer to that bar conversation than you thought? Number 3. The Osaka Flu and the Next Pandemic. In Margin Chains, Season 4, Episode 21, there is no secret lab, no conspiracy. A factory worker in Osaka gets sick. He coughs near products on the assembly line. They get packaged and shipped. When they arrive in Springfield, the virus comes with them. The Osaka flu spreads through a completely ordinary, unremarkable supply chain. One person, one cough, one sealed box. This aired in 1993. It was treated as a joke for years. Then, in 2020, the world watched the exact same mechanism at global scale. In 2026, the warning is relevant again. A new H3N2 variant, subclad K, emerged in August 2025 and drove an earlier, more intense flu season globally. In the US alone, CDC figures showed the current season caused an estimated 22 to 38 million illnesses, up to 590,000 hospitalizations, and up to 60,000 deaths by late January. By early March, 101 pediatric deaths had been recorded. But the smartest thing the episode predicted was not the disease. It was the panic. Fear outrunning facts, hospitals straining under sudden demand, misinformation spreading faster than treatment. The medicine truck scene, where Springfield mobs a truck of cures, flips it, and releases killer bees, was absurdist comedy. But the human behavior behind it is documented and real. The WHO Pandemic Agreement was adopted on May 20, 2025, but key sections remain unfinished, and the deal does not take effect until at least 60 countries ratify it. The WHO has said for years, the next pandemic is not if, it is when. The Osaka flu was never a prediction about one virus. It was a prediction about human nature under pressure, and that prediction never expires. Number 2. Mass surveillance and the end of privacy. In the Simpsons movie, NSA employees listen to random phone calls until one screams that they have finally found someone worth watching. Played for laughs, landed very differently after 2013. Then in Surveil with Love, Season 21, Episode 20, Springfield panics after a radiation scare. People protest the installation of surveillance cameras. The outrage is real. The cameras go up anyway. The anger fades. The cameras stay. That is the prediction. Not that surveillance would arrive. That people would adapt to it until being watched felt like weather. China operates approximately 700 million surveillance cameras, roughly 1 per 2 people. In the US, the Associated Press revealed that Border Patrol has been monitoring millions of drivers through a secretive, predictive system built on license plate reader networks, flagging people whose travel patterns the system deems suspicious, without probable cause or notification. Flock Safety's camera network has been used to monitor protesters and has appeared in court records related to abortion investigations. In February 2026, reporting confirmed police were using school security cameras to assist federal immigration enforcement. This is not one agent on one phone line. It is automated systems, linked databases, and pattern recognition software, building a permanent, searchable picture of where you have been, where you are likely going, and whether your patterns fit a profile someone somewhere has decided is worth flagging. Privacy does not die with one law. It fades. One camera on a corner, one license plate reader over a road, one data sharing deal, one quiet algorithm, until the cameras become invisible. Not because they are hidden, because people stopped looking at them. How many cameras are between your front door and wherever you are going tomorrow? Number 1. Hover cars. Here is where the predictions shift into something almost hopeful, which is, in its own way, just as unsettling. Because when the cartoon's most ridiculous, most impossible-sounding prediction turns out to be the one closest to actually happening, it forces you to re-examine every warning on this list with completely different eyes. In Itchy and Scratchy Land, Season 4, Episode 6, the show flashes forward to the future. Sitting in the background, treated as completely unremarkable, are hover cars. Not announced, not celebrated. Just parked there, ordinary, the way station wagons filled the background of earlier episodes. The Simpsons presented flying cars not as humanity's greatest achievement, but as the thing that happened after the world quietly changed. One day, they didn't exist. One day, they just did. On December 5, 2025, the U.S. Department of Transportation released its Advanced Air Mobility National Strategy, stating these new aircraft could redefine how people travel and how communities connect. On March 9, 2026, the DOT and FAA announced 8 selections under the Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Integration Pilot Program. Real-world operational testing in actual U.S. airspace. On March 11, 2026, just weeks ago, Joby Aviation began flight testing its first aircraft built to meet FAA certification standards, with FAA pilots expected to conduct official test flights later this year. The company Aleph has developed a road-legal vehicle that can drive on streets and take off vertically to fly over traffic, with an FAA Special Airworthiness Certificate already granted. The gap between cartoon background art and FAA-certified airspace is getting smaller with every test flight. But the question The Simpsons never answered is the one that matters most. Who controls the low-altitude airspace once this becomes real? Who manages the noise, the accidents, the landing zones, the traffic above your neighborhood? And most importantly, Does this become everyday transportation for everyone, or a fast sky lane for the wealthy? The Simpsons showed a future where hover cars were ordinary, not a luxury, not a status symbol, just how people got around. Whether the real version follows that vision or becomes one more technology that deepens the divide between those who can afford the future and those who cannot, is a question 2026 is only beginning to answer. 10 predictions. 10 moments where a cartoon most people dismissed demonstrated more foresight than the institutions, governments, and corporations paid to be watching. AI replacing workers while those workers are still training the replacements. A planet smothered by plastic while global negotiations collapse. Algorithms managing human attention on a scale governments are only now recognizing as dangerous. The normalization of nuclear rhetoric and a doomsday clock at its most dangerous reading ever. A pandemic-ready world that still has not agreed on how to respond to the next one. Surveillance systems so embedded in daily life that most people have stopped seeing them. And flying cars, the most impossible prediction of all, being tested in American airspace with FAA oversight right now. The question was never just whether the Simpsons got these right. The real question is what you do with the information now that you know. Because every single prediction on this list followed the same pattern. The warning came early. People laughed, the window to respond was wide open, and then one day it was not a prediction anymore. It was just the news. Which one on this list do you think is the most urgent right now? Drop it in the comments below. And if this gave you something real to think about, share it. Because the most dangerous prediction on this list is not any one of the 10. It is the idea that none of this has anything to do with you. It does.